Well, hello, this fantabulous Monday, you creators, community, and kind folks out there. Welcome to RPG with DBJ, and I am your host, DBJ. And this week, matter of fact, just about every day, we take a simple subject and we deep dive into it all week long. And today is Monster Monday. Now, our week-long subject will be the weather. Yeah, pretty common thing. Weather. It seems rather simple, even mundane to a certain extent. But believe you me, between myself and the brilliant individuals who take part in the live broadcast of the show, there's no limitation to the amazing things we're going to come up with. Now, I have to start out with the comment that someone in the Discord, and by the way, is a little preamble. This show is simulcast over to Twitch, YouTube, and our Discord server. The Discord has the audio only, but some people prefer the audio and participating in the Discord. And also, if you're someone who really wants to participate live, feel free to go over to use either of those platforms to participate. Drop a comment in. The Discord server does allow you to drop in, links, memes, photos, things like that. Now, I have to start this out with a comment that Deadman says, like, definition of bad GMing: a 10-minute description at the beginning of the session of the weather, then it never comes up again. And my purpose here, or at least I as your self-appointed third pillar-ist in the tabletop RPG community, the reason for me bringing this up is because it's kind of like the weather or the environment is kind of like my little baby, and I don't know, maybe there's some things we can pull from it. Now I will admit, like, Deadbed is very right about this, because unfortunately, we as game masters and creators have gotten into this. It's the unimportant preamble, and what I mean by that is, like, we'll watch television shows or movies or read books, and they will set the scene. So the scene is this, and you describe the dark streets and it's rainy. You'll describe the thick foliage in the deep jungles. You'll describe the blazing sun while you're in the desert. You'll describe the noise and the steam, and the smut in a foundry or a factory or something like that. And then, while we're shaping the scene, and the players probably into it too, they're like, "Oh, that's really cool. I'm really feeling. I'm really immersed." We know that term, immersion. You don't want to break the immersion. And once we finish with that, it's like, "Oh, great! I've gotten to get out my producer or director's chair. Like, I got to sit in it and film my scene or something, and the people are into it." But after the description, it breaks down into perception checks, who goes first in initiative, maybe somebody kicks some random object over in the corner, and then we're kind of done with it, right? And my feeling is, and this is not a universal at all, but a tool we should have in our tool chest is to use the weather, even in a mechanical effect. Now, I know today is Monster Monday, and we're going to really focus on Monster Monday, but I really want to layer this with the fact that sometimes it's not just having a sword fight in the streets, but a sword fight in the streets, and it's muddy, and it's rainy, and it's dark, is pretty important. Having a chase through the woods is one thing, but having a chase through the woods, and there's thick foliage, and you may trip and fall, bump your head, and it's foggy, and you can barely see. It's pea soup thick, and you can barely see ahead of you, and it's one of these things where, sure, should the environment always have an effect every single time the players move from scene to scene? No. The answer to that is no, never. But could it have an effect? And could it change the way the players interact with their enemy? My answer to that is, of course, is hell yes. So let's bring up the weather. Oh man. The Dead Man says GM for 2.5 edition for AD&D did an intro for 10 minutes, including arms waving in the air for a Diablo campaign, yet weather never came up in the game. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, Alex C says, yeah, most GMs do forget. A few good ones always implemented to set the scene and possible hazards. Um, I've seen newer DMs and GMs do forget it a lot or never thought of implementing it in their games. And the reason why I think it's a tool, it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's a tool is I always bring up, you guys know I always bring this up. It's not sharks that are just dangerous, but it's being attacked and bitten by a shark in the deep ocean, right? It's not the alligator that happens to be scary, which is alligators are scary, but it's the alligator that draws you down into the murky waters of a swamp, which adds to that layer of danger and hazards. And we the reason why I decided to do weather as a subject this week is because last week we were just having a general conversation, and I heard this big bang behind me, and I thought it echoed through the sound, my audio, and it was because it was a thunderstorm and rainy and things like that. And guys, we were all talking about how we live in communities where the weather can change. You can have seemingly up to 4 different seasons in one day. And as while some people may live in tropical regions, others live in a place where there's only 2 seasons, winter and not. Um, there are many of us that live in temperate and moderate locations where it can be windy or rainy or foggy or hail, and have any number of those things, including a bright sunny day. Dead Man says as many as 10 in a day. Yeah, right. And while as an outsider, that could really throw you for a loop, right? But if you're an insider, if you live there, you're just used to it. You're like, oh well, if you live in Florida around, but what is it, between 3 and 5 p.m., you better expect rain, and either you have an umbrella or you just go inside, and so people's lives, sometimes I think we don't even think about our own weather except in comparison or in antithesis to someone else's weather, based on where we live ourselves, right? I remember I'm in central Ohio in the States, and I remember having a conversation with a woman. She would visit family in Wisconsin, and I made a comment offhandedly like, "Oh wow, I guess the snow in the winter is brutal." And she's like, "No, it's worse down here because the temperature just keeps raising and lowering, and the snow melts and then it freezes and it melts again." She says, you go up high enough, it snows, it stays like powder, and it just stays on the ground. You don't even bother shoveling it. You just pack it down. You just pack more snow on top of it. What's the big deal?" And I went, "Oh, I didn't even think about that." Right. So I'm sure many of you live in places where, say, it rains a lot, and having an umbrella or a raincoat is it's like putting on socks and shoes. You don't even think about it. You just grab a random one and you go out the door because you've got 6 sitting by your door, and you probably bring that behavior with you when you travel to other places where the weather has changed. Yeah. Um, yeah, Alex, he says it would also help that a player can um take cue on the current scene. Oh yeah, yeah. Basically take cue on the current scene and try to keep it going, but I rarely see it. Right. Take cue basically meaning like um like it's a number of things. Like add questions to it. Be enthused to embrace and interact with the environment, including the weather, but like Alex C is saying, they're not taking a cue from like, hey, I'm the GM, I'm giving you this thing, why don't you use it? And a lot of times players don't. And I think it's just because many role playing games don't include it, and we've allowed the muscle to atrophy. But we'll get into some specifics in a minute. Alex C continues to say that weather does change at the last minute. A heavy downpour, and all of a sudden sun is shining, and it gets muggy real fast, and wish for the rain to stay. Yeah, I work outside, and there are times where I'm thinking like a certain if the weather comes in a certain order, I just wish it just wouldn't have happened in the first place, or one following the other is terrible. Like you said, a heavy downpour and then a sunny day creates like that mugginess and that fog, and you'll actually see it lift off of the asphalt. Like the fog will actually start to lift up into the air, or you the weather says, "Oh, we're gonna have freezing rain," and you're like, "Oh, does it have to rain when the temperature's going down? Like, why would I would rather it be snow or something like that." Okay, so when it comes to, since it's Monster Monday, we will be talking. It's not just about monsters; it's about NPCs. It's about the living, breathing, and or sentient things that are in our world, where that are not the player characters. And weather tells us a lot about how we act and react in our normal lives, right? If the player characters see people battening down the hatches, maybe they will or won't understand that a terrible storm is going to come through, high winds. If many of our fantasy cities are often placed around waterways because their waterways are, give us places to travel, trade, of course, freshwater, fishing, that kind of thing, right? So, who knows? Is a tidal surge about to happen? Are um, are fishing lanes and boats? Do they come in when the tide is high or low? Are these winds? Are these trade winds when winds come and are for or against the sailing of ships and things? So it can really affect how people act and or react based on their lives and their well-being. Okay, when fall hits and you have a community and winter's about to come, maybe there's a push to get to stock up on as many trade goods as possible before trade routes become impassable because of snow and ice and that kind of thing. In California, despite the sunshine and where the majority of movies are filmed because of the so-called great weather, they still have earthquakes, mudslides, and forest fires, which I am including, and brush fires, which I'm including in weather, right? It's basically the environment and how it can impact how we live. Um, yeah, I hear you, Alex. Alex says your feet can only stay dry for so long. God, that's terrible feeling when your feet start to like when your feet get moist and you're just like, oh, it feels like I'm standing in like fungus between the toes and stuff, and your socks are damp. There's a terrible feeling, and even I'm going to plug something here a little bit. If you want to have, including some kind of psychological harm when it comes to the environment, I believe they try to include that in Tomb of Annihilation, included when traveling through the jungles of Cholt. You can have you start to gain exhaustion, but I believe that sometimes you can do a mental exhaustion, whether you want to use the fifth edition or whatever edition of game you're playing, whether you want to use some kind of like sanity check but make it long term. So it's not a sanity check like, oh, it's about to rain, make a sanity check, but it's caused over days of time. Used in the supplements that we're writing for the cinematic environments, we have despair, which is on parity with exhaustion, but it is mental exhaustion. And so you can gain levels up to 6 levels of mental exhaustion just due to travel itself. And it's supposed to represent, just despair and confusion and anger and hallucinations and that kind of thing, all the way up to like catatonia from just being beaten down, hopelessness basically when traveling. Um, yeah, Alex adds into it. Lightning can cause fires. Yep, that happens out in California where you have very dry brush, whether you have open fields or forests. Um, how many times? I'll throw this out to you guys. Just think, how many times have you, as a player or GM, had people go on an adventure through woodlands or savanna or plains, and a massive fire sweeps through? Have you ever played in a region where the forest is on fire? And I don't mean on fire for like a 10-foot square set of squares or something. I'm talking like a fire that devastates, I don't know, a huge the woodlands around a huge mountain range or something, right? I'm just asking that in general. While I'm not saying all of you will have the same experience, I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, yeah, it's a thing that can happen, but has it happened in our games? Probably not, right? And yeah, anyway, Alex C goes on to continue. Says heavy downpours can cause landslides and floods. Yeah, have a fight on a muddy hill. What happens then when you have a fight on a muddy hill? I would love the idea of doing that. Yeah, heavy winds, rain, or blizzards can mess with your senses, and it says it depends on the region. So the reason why I'm bringing up weather and just the environment in general is because while in some games we do have our traps and we have our layers and riddles and puzzles, and we do have creatures that live in layers, the cultivated layer that like responds or or is a location an enemy lives in that is specific for them, that helps them out. My feeling is that the environment should be independent of those things, yet combine all those together. And so bandits that take advantage when the thick fog rolls in, or the the sabotage that happens on the warehouse docks when the storm surge rises and the white capped waves in the cold sweep across the docks, and everyone battens down the hatches, but someone decides to sabotage a warehouse for political gain or intimidation or something. Using the weather could be the thing that is the inciting event for the thing to happen. I mean, it could also be the monkey wrench thrown in when someone's trying to do something and they're unable to do the thing. For example, unloading those same ships on the docks when a sudden storm sweeps in and people were saying you need to get off the ship because it's going to get smashed against the docks, but there's something valuable inside the ship that needs to be removed, whether it is a vampire, asleep in his chambers, or exotic animals in cages, or lots of treasure, or captured prisoners, or any number of amazing things that might be there when suddenly the storms hit and the PCs are tasked with, hey, we need you to go into that storm-tossed ship to get the thing out, and then they realize that they're saboteurs, or someone trying to release the captured prisoner or whatnot, and now you have this adversarial conflict where anybody could get thrown against walls or swept off the deck of the ship or trapped inside when the ship begins to sink, and all these things, so on and so forth, adding layers upon layers where the weather is the inciting event and the weather starts to increase the dangers. Going through the woods when it's rainy or going through a jungle and it's rainy might be terrible, but when the tribal orcs or something on the top of the muddy hill attack you from below and you try to scramble up the hill and 2 steps forward makes you slide 1 step back, might be kind of, it might be kind of interesting, right? Yeah, orcs could be very boring. Orcs at the top of a muddy hill in the jungle might make that encounter memorable. Right? Alex says some places can be dry or too wet for natural fires to happen. Exactly. Like, what mechanical thing could rain have? maybe resistance to fire for everyone and everything. Maybe it reduces Maybe it also reduces halves range and duration for that wall of fire your pyromancer wants to create. I've said that plenty of times. You can have a mechanical effect. Same thing with fog, right? Yeah. I'll continue with Alex and not going to ogre here. Let's see. A bright flash and deafening crack of a lightning strike striking a tree a few feet away from you. Yeah. For example, if I understand, yes, I know everyone has dark vision in Dungeons and Dragons, but you could have it dark where on the roll of a d4 or every other round or whatever, when a lightning bolt strikes, it's actually illuminating what's around you and then pops back down in the darkness again. You could do that. Accidental lightning strikes around people are another thing. Again, maybe spells maybe magical spells are just a duplication of what the natural environment does. So if you want to know how much a lightning bolt out of the sky does, look for a lightning bolt from a mage, right? Same thing there. Yep. as yeah, a lightning strikes a tree a few feet away from you, as every hair in your body stands at its end with a stinging tingle at the same time, having that pucker factor. I felt that in real life delivering mail. I've had that where I do the 5 Mississippi rule. The 5 second rule where if I see a bright light and then I hear the thunder 5 seconds or less, I stop because my ass is not getting struck by lightning. Ogre says, I'm curious though. Dramatic weather is one thing, but how can I, as a GM, use dreary weather? Think England, not heavy rain, but a drizzle, not peaceful fog, but a heavy haze. Rain can cause trouble for archers, by the way. Yeah, absolutely. Now, layering two, right? Like you said, not dramatic weather where it's a hazard in and of itself, like a tornado, but maybe just dreary. My feeling for that is that players. Okay, I'm gonna have. I was trying to hold myself from being actually plugging this. I moved my book. Okay, we at Critical Hit Publishing has created something known as despair, and despair happens. Our rule was it happens 3 days plus your wisdom modifier before despair hits you, and that is when you have an environment where it's so bad and it's so dreary that it can have a psychological effect on the individuals in it if they do not use or take some sort of action to stop it. And usually that action means camping, having discussions. It's why people in proverbially say, let's get out of the rain, right? Let's go get a drink. You know what? It's rainy outside. I want to go Afghan on myself and drink hot chocolate and watch a movie, right? There's a reason why even unconsciously when the weather is bad, and what I mean by bad, just like you said, dreary, it's just how many older folks, I guess I count myself as one of them, have you had in your life where they go, oh, my knee hurts, it's probably about to rain. It's I feel in my bones something's about to happen, and I'm not suggesting that that you go call Cthulhu deep on this and you start rolling like insanity checks for having dreary weather. What I mean is that the threat of that happening over a long period of time. For example, the players have to travel for 3 weeks and they're on their own in a desolate region, crossing a desert or like you said, rainy region or something of that nature. Unless they are natives to the place, I could see someone getting pretty dismayed by it. And so the threat of having drops in initiative and perception and skill checks and things of that nature, even if it's very subtle, I think would add to not just the description, but the overall theme of what's going on. And not only that, but remember, the the monsters and the people and the NPCs are affected by it as well. So, for example, once again it's raining outside and everyone comes into the tavern. Instead of a big old fight breaking out in a tavern, maybe everyone else is just like, look, I'm in my own world. I don't even have the energy to draw up a fight with you at this very moment. I'm pretty much just trying to stay dry and stay by the fire. And that might affect people's behaviors in terms of their good and or bad portions of their personality. Um, when someone's automobile gets stuck in the snow, people will tend to stop and help that person out, even though on a sunny day they wouldn't give them the time of day, right? There's something about the combined nature of being in the situation that makes people act and react in a different manner too. And I don't think we should forget that part of it. But a very good comment there, Pet Ogre, and I'll probably go back to it too because I don't believe I answered it adequately. Mr. Spinzar, hey guys, says in a setting my old roommate ran the desert dwelling, giants worship death. The sun was seen as her eye, which watched a select few and noticed them. Yeah, I like that. Like the Witness Me, Mad Max boys, but a decade before that movie. Yeah, Witness Me. As the giants fell into a zealous bloodlust and um, fought their goddess would watch them intently. The temperature would spike as combat continued. Thus, a select few battlefields are immortalized in crude molten glass with skeletons blanched white by the fierce light, paused in a single perfect frame of visceral violence. And I even love the framing of that. I'm getting a little ghibli down in the nether regions. I like that. I like that a lot, dude. That's sweet. Pet Ogre goes to talk about soggy bowstrings and archers in the rain and such. Yeah, and also heavy rain reduces our range visibility as well. Dead Man says, I had a lightning bolt strike the ground less than 100 feet from me when I was a kid. Damn. Oh, shit. Oh, dude. Yeah, Alex says, a bright flash can temporarily blind you, or that loud crack of lightning can deafen you for a short time. Yeah, when soaked, I don't have the energy to deal with people. I just want to get dry and stay warm. Yeah, and what I mean by the weather affecting your behavior. Okay, just follow me on this. Okay, what's something very boring? Ogres. Let's take some ogres out in the wilderness or something. And so ogres out in the wilderness taking advantage of people traveling along, but all of a sudden, we've had a month of torrential rains, and it's just like, oh my god, all the trade routes are flooded out. PCs come upon the ogres, or the ogres stumble upon the PCs encampment, and maybe just maybe the ogres just want. Maybe they just want to sit around a campfire and get dry. Maybe they just want like an oiled cloth covering over their heads and to sit by a fire. And it may not mean that they're violent. Maybe they're just frustrated and angry and tired. And so this might be the moment that the PCs could talk with the ogres and find out, like, why are they on the road attacking bandits in the first place? Maybe these aren't random attacks. Maybe this allows them to grants the PCs some kind of opening into why the ogres are doing what they're doing. And it doesn't mean that the ogres are necessarily their friends, right? Maybe later on, the PCs get into some other kind of conflict, the ogres come upon them, and the ogres mention the PCs, thanks for the grog and the warm spot, but I don't know, the Lich Queen says we must take your heads, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to take your heads, and that could lead to maybe just a little bit more drama in a fight. Someone mentioned grog? Hells yes. Oh man. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Especially on a rainy day, right? And not only can the weather affect people emotionally, there's a cultural thing attached to it as well. Is it you could have a community that has certain cultural touchstones based on the weather. Is it rude to offer your umbrella to someone when it rains? Or I mean, or is it a cultural thing where you should offer your umbrella to someone when it rains? If you're out camping, again, is it even um, generational enemies? Do they offer each other a dry place to stay to escape the rains before going back to being enemies again? I'm looking at the stereotypical Bedouin travelers in across the desert, or the nautical the nautical rules on the ocean. Hey, if my ship is in trouble and I raise my banners and send out a radio signal saying that I'm in trouble, the cultural rule is to help those people out, whether they are enemies or not. Even in war, they did the same thing. Ships fight each other. One ship goes down. What happens? The enemy comes over and saves the lives of yes, I'm going to say it, the seamen falling into the ocean. Right? The, it those are cultural things given. Bedouin warriors. Grog. Thank you, dead man. Dead man put in the Discord the link and the information on grog itself. Is any variety of alcoholic beverages. I haven't read it, but wasn't it true that that more people drank grog than water because the alcohol in the grog would the watered down alcohol would kill the bacteria more than you could trust. Safer than water. Thank you there. Red Dice Diary says, "Yep, safer than just water." Yep. And weren't there mutinies on ships that ran out of grog because it was a way to keep the crewmen pacified in a way? Yeah, same. He goes on to say same reason they used to drink small beer or watered down beer. Yeah, exactly, because you could mathematically trust the cleanliness of the drink rather than pure water, right? And again, uh, weather also causes other things as too, not just cultural changes, but in terms of how we deal with each other. Again, um, helping your elderly neighbor, shovel their walk when it snows, or ensuring that when a tornado sweeps through Tornado Alley here in the States, that you allow people to come down to your storm shelter to escape a tornado event or something, and the people come together to help each other recover from the damage that's done. Same thing with flood zones here in Central Ohio. We have people who live in flood zones, and when there's torrential rains, they bring out their sandbags and they help each other out because they know once again their basements are going to flood. They love living near the rivers. They hate it when the rivers overflow their bounds. And sorry, something just came to mind when I talk about weather. I'm going to get into the chat and go back into what I'm thinking of. You guys know me. I'm very ADD when it comes to ideas and stuff. So sorry about that. Um, yeah, Warhammer 40K. Yeah, God damn, I love that setting and series. Yeah, it's awesome. Um, yep. In a way, the alcohol is sterile. No bacteria to worry about. Yeah, of course, absolutely. Yeah, Red Dice says nothing brings people together like adversity, and this could be the motivation for why it is that bloodthirsty enemies are able to socialize with each other, even if the player characters are in such a danger. For example, um, I don't know. Let's do a stereotypical Knight's Order is going to attack, you know, an orc band or something that's been attacking a village, and then suddenly some dramatic weather event happens. Snow, rain, storms, whatever the case might be, floods or whatever. Maybe it's just expected that they gather together for common protection. Let's say in the eaves of a cave or overhang on a mountainside, or they set up a tent that's very stable, and the orcs need protection, and the knights let the orcs in, and they share drink and food. It, the PCs might be thinking like, shouldn't we be slaughtering these guys right now? And maybe for these people in this particular region, no, you don't do that over warm chai or tea when they're sitting under your tent. You don't do that when there's a sandstorm outside or dust devils are sweeping through. Like you just don't do that. Yep. We do that all the time, Alex. You know that sporadic moments of going off topic. Yeah, we squirrels are our mascot. Something else that made me think about the weather as well is that um, how often have we seen destroyed locations because of the weather? Um, Abandoned locations, places that are destroyed because of fires, and compound destruction or abandonment because of the weather itself. For example, a torrential storm comes through, lightning bolt strikes a house catches on fire. Okay, um, mudslides and floods come through a region. People leave homes, and of course there's looting. So, if you're someone who wants to rationalize why you have dungeon delving, but you're uh a hippie, you're anti-grognardian, and you want to use a logical reason why people are dungeon delving. How about going through people's abandoned properties after a particular weather event, right? Player characters might have to go into a portion of a village that was abandoned. That's the lower, like, uh, let's go back to those docks in the city down by in a bay that got slammed by a storm. Maybe the people went to higher ground to go to their summer homes or left the region because it was slammed by 50-foot waves or something, and the PCs now have to go through this abandoned city with ships that were tossed up onto the streets and the docks that were shattered and homes that have been dislodged from their foundations and flooded basements and such, and who knows what's down in there. And so a dungeon might not be a dungeon, but might be something that came about. It, dungeons might be a temporary thing that came about caused by the weather in general. You know? Yeah. Yes, I am AD&D when it comes to topics. I should have a T-shirt made that way. Anyway, the 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 other thing that can happen when it comes to weather are let's take bestial creatures. It is Monster Monday. A lot of bestial creatures come out of the woodworks because of the weather, or are motivated to do such a thing because of the weather. For example, floodwaters, a river that floods overruns its banks, might have those dangerous alligators that normally stay to the main river now going into the city because there's waist deep water flooding into the city. Maybe there's something that lived in the sewers of a major city, and the sewers have now flooded and clogged, and that water is reaching up above the ground. So now you've got disease and oozes and maybe bacteria and things coming up. Yeah, gas is flooded coastal cities equals street sharks. I know you're building into it, TBJ. Gotta have some street sharks. Which, I don't know, I'm thinking that would be kind of fun. Players are like, we're gonna go down into the streets, and one of the players is like, I made my perception check. You don't want to do that as you see the shark fin swimming through the streets and whatnot. Hell yeah, yeah, Sharknado. I like the way you put that in there. A red dice, yeah. Let's hope it doesn't combine with a tornado. We all know what happens then. Hell yeah, yeah. Or was there someone drew a picture of a water elemental with a shark in the middle of it, and the player character sitting around looking at it like, how are we going to deal with this? Right? Um, I'm While weather isn't necessarily part of this, the environment does. I'm looking at the canals of Venice, right? Um, in such a way that there's the image. Thank you. There it is. That's awesome. Yeah, they're just like, what the hell? There's funny. There's a high pressure system sweeping the Sword Coast with a 50% chance of sharks in the evening. Yeah, crocodiles won't be too far away. Mm-mm. Suggest you stay indoors or be swallowed whole by dropping fish. Well, as silly, listen, as silly as that sounds, you cannot tell me your players won't remember that happening when like, yeah, we're dropping sharks and boulets from the sky and deal with it, right? Yeah. Oh man. That that would be hilarious. A druidic cult does the same thing. They're just like, you keep poisoning our oceans, we're gonna drop a storm on top of you. It starts raining like frogs and sharks and octopi and stuff. Ooh, it'd be kind of nasty. Street sharks. Street sharks. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Street sharks in jeans and leather jackets. Yep. Okay, so now Red Dice says I could see a coastal flooding being used by sharkmen or something similar, taking the opportunity to try and claim land. What if they have sorcerers attempting to do this to ensure the waters don't recede? Yeah, or maybe again. Remember, we were talking about the fact that some of us, this is just a normal thing. Maybe the players come into a town and the people in the town are like, well, it's shark season, and everyone's battening down the hatches, and the PCs are like, what do you mean shark season? We're on solid ground, and the water is way down there. We're high enough elevation, and all of a sudden, this during these seasons, maybe the water levels, the tide does rise high enough to allow police. I know I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but you know what I'm about to say. The Sahogan monsters, whatever. Okay, Sahogan, lizardmen, reskin dragonborn or something. Maybe they come out of the deep ocean because the weather has allowed them to then flow closer to humanity because of the deeper floodwaters. As an example, again, maybe riding on the back of those sharks or giant alligators or whatever the case might be. You know, the weather might change how it is that your adversaries engage with the environment. And maybe this is a season where they do take advantage and they do make raids for the 2 months of the rainy season, you know, or storm season or whatever the case may be. Yeah. Alex says, would that be against the druids' ways, harming animals in the process? I think you're giving druids too much credit there. There's got to be. Come on, every druid can't be nice. There's got to be an asshole druid, right? They can't all be like goody goody, not goody goodies, but like absorbed with nature. Some of them, I'm sure, some of them are just like, you know, baking some meat and eating it, raw when their other allies aren't looking. I'm picking. You know, I am. Red Dice says maybe the villagers hand meat outside their homes, hoping the sharkmen will take it and leave them their families alone. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I see. Hang meat outside. Yes. Why wouldn't that be a thing? Why not? Why not? Why not type a goat or a pig or something like that outside their homes? Just for that reason. And the PCs come into town, they don't know why. And so even with us talking about this, um, even with us mentioning this, we are world building at the same time, right? Why are there these nails and bloodstains on the outside of everyone's home and no one's talking about it? Why has everyone attached a couple of chickens or a goat or whatever outside their home? Maybe this is the reason why. And thank you. There's Dead Man. Yep. um, Gaz says so. I have tribal shark folk, and they do bizarre rituals to call in the flood so they can raid inland. Yeah, I wouldn't just um, argue that point. Why not? Yeah, maybe they have elaborate rituals to allow them to do this thing, and maybe just maybe that is what this is how they are able to. Maybe there's a weird synergy with the community that does this thing. Like the shark men go to land and the people give them food, because for some reason the storms or the season, maybe they've run low on their own hunting grounds because there's some other evil out there that's causing them to go to land in the first place. The people are safe because they give the shark people food, and they've never really had a conversation about this. This is just the way they keep themselves safe. Hell yeah, I like that. Yeah. Red Dice says, I think you do a really interesting story with an aquatic druid eco terrorist. Perhaps they believe that the life evolving to move onto land was a mistake, and they want to see everything returned to the waters that spawned them. I could see that too. Druids don't necessarily need to be either neither xenophobic nor passive. Druids could be quite violent, and you could even say they might even be martyring themselves, doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. Right? They don't expect everyone else to do the thing, but they are doing it themselves, knowing that they are breaking their oaths to return things to the way it should be, so that others don't have to do it. A lot of people rationalize their behavior like that, and so maybe they're doing the same thing. Sure. Gas says the saying is "pay in flesh or blood," meaning you either offer them tribute or they take it. I like it. I like that a lot. I do like that. And again, when it comes to world building, it's not like, okay, roll for a random encounter, sharkmen, lizard folk, troglodytes, or something from the ocean. Great, and they've got, let's see, there's 12 of them and 3 sharks. Great, okay. Fight. Okay, roll initiative. What happens with? Okay, I've got to. I am. Something is about to happen here. Mm, 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 mm. Sorry about that. The Not only can we do some world building, but we can also elicit a lot of our behaviors from the things that creatures are doing. For example, we're talking about a flood, right? We're talking about torrential rain and flood, and combination, just as an example, of us creating our interactions. But also, when those flood waters start to recede, those creatures on land might attempt to recede with it, you know, um, for danger of being stuck on land. Or, as we've seen this happen with certain types of fish, there are fish that are able to cross land for short periods of time to jump into other pools of water. And in southern Florida, uh, Everglade region, you'll see alligators move from pools of water to pools of water. Maybe when the flood rains and the flood waters recede, there are still these pools of water that have these dangerous beasts or adversaries in them, with the inability to return to the lakes or oceans or rivers that they came from. So that might just be a thing as well. Yeah. I thought that was the sound of the waters rising. Yeah, up in my lungs. Hell yeah. Yeah, Alex says to give or to take. Either way, they're going to take your blood if you're willing or not. And who's to say that this particular thing, like maybe this leads to a ritual where an innocent person is kidnapped by these shark people, and everyone thinks that they're killed, but maybe they're taken and turned into one of them for a ritual or something. Maybe this aquatic druidic cult is kind of like that, you know? Or, this is strange to say, maybe the aquatic cult and the druids on land are working together to create violence simply to separate each of their groups. We're on land, you're in water, we should be that way. And they both are agreeing, like, yeah, we should be separated. So they work together to create the separation in a way. Evil people working together, coming together as one to keep the separated or something. Yeah, Red Dice says you could also have a swamp druid or something trying to expand a swamp. Yeah, giving it a bit of a deep one's vibe. Yeah, absolutely. You could, I mean, you know me, I love reskinning and reflavoring something. What would a swamp aboleth look like? Like not a like a aboleth down in the deep ocean, but one that lives on the surface, like like oily blackened skin and tentacles and a maw and a hypnotic eye in the middle of it, and it slides through like the bayou, sliding across the uh, the the thick mud, and then like a crocodile or alligator, its eye and tentacles just pierce the thick membrane of the swamp waters just a little bit. I like that. I like that idea. I like the maybe something natural or maybe something unnatural. What's the gibbering mouther or gibbering mouser, depending on how you want to pronounce it. The ooze made up of humanoid mouth and eyes. Maybe that's a thing that comes about if someone dies in the swamp, so you can give it like a Cthulhuidish Lovecraftian thing to it. Yeah, you gotta keep them separated. Thank you, dead man. Always with the sarcasm. I'm loving it. Yeah. Oh man, gotta keep them separated. Gaz says the Bayou Aboleth whispers into your mind with a thousand voices, echoing the insanity of infinity with a thick Cajun accent. I'm gonna get that soul. Oh no, wonderful. I'll guarantee. I can't do a Cajun accent, but that would be hilarious. Y'all don't come down to the realm of Billy Bob bloggeth. We don't take too kindly to the two leg folk around here. Oh man, they have to have like what's the television show Swamp Folk, where you have to have the bottom, you have to have the you put in what my brain just went yeah, you got to drop in the subtitles down there. Red Dice says it'd be interesting if the Bayou Aboleth had some sort of symbiotic relationship with the people who lived in the area. Dueling banjos playing in the distance. Crossroads. Yeah, you know what? I again, it's kind of weird, but another cultural touchstone we can pull along with the weather and the environment is that is that to us, I don't know, kind of like me visiting, say, Australia, the people who live there might be used to the things happening in and around them. Again, the bayou with the aboleth, right? And despite the danger, they've come to a symbiotic relationship with the thing, but outsiders don't have that knowledge and don't understand it, right? So sure, it could be it could be a thing. Yep. Jason says, drop bears and magpies. We know what to look for. Look out for. Yeah, I mean, I get my ass killed if I wandered off into Central Australia. But the people who live there, it's not that they have. Maybe the people don't have a bane for the thing. They're just knowledgeable about it. Like, oh, before the sun goes down, no one ever crosses the, I don't know, um, Blood Range River or something like that, right? Like you just don't do the thing with the thing. Or why are you walking around with a sack of rotten meat and they hang the sack of rotten meat from a tree and say we need to get out of here, right? Why do they do the thing? Because they know they need to do it. And so whether it's burning incense or rubbing a particular kind of oil on their flesh or taking a roundabout route through a particular region because it's been marked, or they see claw marks on the swamp trees, or there's evidence of a kill nearby or something like that. Maybe they go out into the bayou with a goat, knowing that that goat or that boar or that pig or something or something like that is a thing. Drop bear. A drop bear. Sometimes drop bear has been assigned a scientific name, is a hoax in contemporary Australian folklore. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. With the Oh, what's the other one? The Jackalope. Is that it? But I still love it anyway. Uh, looks like the owl bear statistics to me. I don't know about you guys. Spenzar says, "These fellas think I'm their god. It's not right, but damn endearing. So's I save them from those bloody bugbears and swamp leeches, and they make me this thing they call grilled catfish. Dang, dang good deal for old blowgaff. Come on, Cajun aboleths. Oh shit." Slaps tentacles against each other in a way there's certain is meant to emulate a clap. Hot damn. Oh shit! Somebody's got to animate that. Someone really has to. The jackalope is Southwest United States. I thought that was Australian. Hmm. Anyway, Red Dice says it might be an interesting twist if instead of the normal evil aboleth controlling the local community mentally, if the community knew about the aboleth and their presence somehow benefited it, if the aboleth helps the community, perhaps they accept that sometimes it uses a local as a means of communication. Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that idea. I think sometimes we relegate evil to make evil for evil's sake, as opposed to the people, looking at each other like, well, yeah, they're evil, but we've got a relationship with this thing. Maybe, especially if there are so many other dangers out there that, or maybe the aboleth just makes life makes life easy for the people that live there in this swamp. Why not? Why not? And and imagine, you guys know me. I always talk about layering and stacking the environment. When it comes to the weather, whether you're in a swamp or a city or something, we talked about rain and fog and those kind of things. You can always implement those things on a case by case basis based on what's happening. And the weather is a great source of getting your damn players to get moving along, right? How many times have we made the mistake by giving the players something to play with and then no tension, no pressure to get them to move, and they're stuck in this analysis paralysis loop and not moving in your world, right? Maybe they know that there's an aboleth out in the swamp. The locals are like, or maybe some outsiders like, listen, we got to go get the locals are in league with the aboleth. We got to get past them. We need to kill the aboleth, or whether blowgath, whatever. Got to get the blowgath, right? And that old blowgath out there in them there thick swamps. And so the PCs have to get out there, and they know rain is on the way. They know thick fog is going to pour in. They know if the muddy, mangrove trees with the exposed roots and whatnot, they know that if they start walking along, that the torrential rains are just going to make everything that much worse for them, that they will try, instead of analysis paralysis, they're like, shit, we've got a couple hours. We got to go in there and attack this thing, because if the floodwaters rise, it won't just be sedentary. It's going to be able to move whenever and wherever it wants to, right? And that very well, I love that. I love that pick too. That very well could be the impetus. The weather itself might be the impetus to get moving. A PC is an arcane archer, and they're like, listen, I'm kick-ass when I can see, but when the fog rolls in, guys, I'm not going to be that effective. We might need to do the thing to do the thing. Sometimes weather can have one-off deals, right? The weather putting out a fire, land freeze. Ooh. Yeah, not only can the weather put out fires, maybe the weather enhances some kind of electrical attack or something of that nature. Maybe when if torrential rain comes down, not only does it put out a fire, it's instead of the PCs being in waist deep water, now they're in chest deep water. That becomes even more difficult to move around in. So on and so forth. Maybe those mangrove tree limbs that you can easily see and not trip and fall over because of their exposed roots. Maybe now you can't see them, or maybe there were fallen trees and hollow tree trunks used as cover to hide things in them, or maybe monsters in them. And now that the torrential rains have come, the things hiding in and around those areas are now coming out. And maybe things are swimming through the floodwaters that normally wouldn't. Again, lampreys, parasites in the flesh, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, don't get me started. I already wetlands is already in getting laid out, and we're doing some editing on it. So believe you me, we put a hell of a lot of stuff in there about that. So yeah, maybe I'm doing a little salesman, a little bit too much of that, but yeah, absolutely. Red Dice says monsters that can see in the dark are very dangerous. If the PCs can't, if something allows creatures to see through the thick aboleth enhanced mists of the mangrove swamps, the threat level would rise greatly if the PCs can't see. And I like what you said there, Red Dice Diaries, because we often fold our arms and get frustrated and pat our lips and go, everyone's got dark vision. This is stupid, right? But darkness isn't the only thing that inhibits vision. Fog, smoke, mist, all these things inhibit vision. I don't know, try taking a swim in swampy waters. I'm pretty sure your visual distance might drop to, say, 0 even, right? Yeah, Red Dice says, I can't think of any PCs that have mist vision. Exactly. It doesn't exist. And, you could make the claim that there are certain things that cannot see in particulates, such as mist and fog and things like that, right? Alex Seasons, what about those giant ass leeches, right? Yeah. Yep. Oh man. And what about the hazards you can see if you're in waist deep waters? You can see the hazards from your waist up. You really can't see the hazards from your waist down. And how would you? I'm gonna put this out there because we are coming to the end. How would you adjudicate drowning in your game? Meaning, leeches, aboleth tentacles, alligators, floodwaters, sharknadoes and stuff. If your PCs are not only being attacked, but they're being grappled, snatched, pulled down, pushed into, dropped into murky water, how would you adjudicate drowning while they're being attacked? So I'm going to leave that in the open. We'll talk about this. We'll get into the details of this tomorrow. But yeah, I'm just saying, just thinking in my head how I would do it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is not necessarily meaning like what you guys would do with this as well. But yeah, we're just talking about weather this week. Please come in tomorrow, join in for Discord Tuesday tomorrow, and of course all week long. And by the way, yep, just below, yeah, Monday through Friday, this show is cast to Twitch, YouTube, and Discord. Seriously. Oh, by the way, if you are bored, you're stuck at home, and you want to support long-form content, not just my own, but anyone else, please like, share, subscribe, follow. As a matter of fact, if you are someone who enjoys using Twitch, even if you don't watch on Twitch, I would really appreciate it. I would love to become an affiliate, which would allow my interactions to become that much better for you guys. So I'm looking for at least 50 followers, and I'm headed there. I think I'm 7 away right now. So that's my only desire. So guys, anyway, thank you very much. We will see you tomorrow. Have a great one. There we go. See you.